Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Kyle King. I'm the Managing Director of Capacity Building International, and welcome once again to one of our webinars in our 2021 webinar series on international models and emergency management. And we are doing this in partnership and collaboration with teams, the International Emergency Management Society and CBI, Capacity Building International. And our webinar series is now sponsored by the Institute for Security Governance, and which operates under the Defense Security Cooperation Agency. And today we're going to be discussing another national model, which is Bulgaria. And so we are fortunate again to be joined by Colonel Orlin Nikolov from the Crisis Management Disaster Response Center of Excellence based out of Sofia, Bulgaria, who's going to give us a nice overview of the Bulgarian system and the crisis management system in use there. Now, as usual, before we get started in the webinar itself, just a couple of quick comments. One, first of all, we're having a couple of technical issues today, so as always, just bear with us as we get started, but I'll cover a few administrative marks and hopefully that's all cleared up before we move into our presentation from the COE. So just really quick, again, joined today, Harold is here today as well, and joined by myself and then Colonel Nikolov. Harold, how are you today?
I'm fine, Kyle. I'm a little bit late today because I'm not at my regular office, so my connection is a little bit up and down, so I don't have much to say, but say hello to everybody. We look forward for Orlin Nikolov's presentation from Bulgaria. And then I will listen in. Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks, Harold. Okay, so now just a few quick points. So what we've done so far in this webinar series is we have actually done 25 events, 881 attendees, and we've covered actually or had enrollments and attendees from 64 nations so far. So if you don't mind in the chat, just let us know where you're joining from. And of course, use that Q&A feature as I have already put inside of the comments earlier when we were starting the chat in the webinar today. We'll collect those questions and those answers, and towards the end of the presentation, we'll go through those again, and we will answer them after Colonel Nikolov has presented his information, and then we'll capture those Q&As. In case we do actually run out of time with our question and answer session, we will be posting those inside of our LinkedIn group. So if you're not part of that already, go ahead and join the other, I think it's almost 300 emergency managers and professionals that are currently in that LinkedIn group now. And that's where we are posting some of the answers to the questions and also, links to the recordings of the webinars and things like that. So you can also follow CBI teams and ISG on social media as well to stay updated. In the future, what we're currently looking at is a number of different webinars coming up. So what we have as well is today is Bulgaria. We're coming up with Thailand. We also have Kosovo coming up, the Pacific Disaster Center, Italy, Germany, and then we have a special two-part series with the University of Manchester on the future of emergency management, which should be a pretty good discussion. I think a lot of that is also centered on post-COVID recovery, as one might expect. And then we get into smart cities and data science and the use of emergency management as well. So now what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Colonel Nikolov and just let me know if you're ready.
Thank you, Kyle, for this invitation, actually. And it's a big challenge to present Bulgarian National Emergency and Disaster Management Model. But I'll try to give my best because anyhow, we participated in this model. And from the Crisis Management and Disaster Response Center of Excellence, this is one of the things which we are interested a lot for different national systems and to be familiar. That's why I would like to also to participate in other seminars which you organized and to be a part of these seminars, webinars, which will be very interesting for me to be familiar with other systems and models. First of all, let's back on the thematic. My task is to present the National Emergency Disaster Management model for Bulgaria. First of all, the Bulgarian National Emergency and Disaster Management model is outlined in the National Law for Disaster Management. And its first version is from 2006, and during the years it has been adapted and modified. The last amendments are from 2020, and it frames a national coordination model of efforts and principles of prevention, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. I would like to start with the terminology given in the law for disaster management. The disaster, it has four characteristics: significant disruption of the normal functioning of society caused by natural phenomena and or human activities, leading to negative consequences for the life or health of the population, property, economy, and environment. You can see on the slide. Prevention, response, and recovery of which exceed the capacity of the system for delivering the usual activities for protection of the society. A state of emergency is a regime that is introduces into the disaster zone by the body specified in the law related to the implementation of measures for a certain period of time in order to control the disaster and conduct rescue and emergency recovery work. It is declared by the major, governor, or council of ministers in threat for human life and health, public or private property, and nature. The main basic principles of disaster protection and management are right to protection of every person. Second, saving human life first, of course. Publicity of the information about the risks from disasters and about the activities of the relevant authorities. Priority of the preventive measures in ensuring the protection, responsibility for the implementation of the protection measures, and gradual provision of resources for protection. The bodies of the executive power, the legal entities, and the sole traders shall organize protection in case of disasters in the performance of the functions assigned to them by the law and by the other normative acts regulating their activities. Their actions are coordinated in a unified rescue system for disaster protection, and apply activities in the whole cycle of disaster management, from prevention to support. Prevention and preparedness on this slide represents all the preventive activities which have to done in order the risk to be reduced. I will explain in shortly every aspect of risk analysis, risk assessment, risk reduction, categorization, and critical infrastructure. The risk of disasters which have to be analyzed, assessed, and mapped are seismic risk, risk of flood, risk of nuclear or radiation accident, geological risk, landslides, active faults and other geological processes, risk of forest fires. It is carried out every 6 years unless otherwise specified in a special law. Responsible authorities carrying out analysis and assessment of disaster risk are the Minister of Regional Development, the Chairman of the Nuclear Regulatory Agency, the Minister of Environment and Water, the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Forest. All those authorities approve methodology for the analysis and assessment of the respective risk. Disaster risk analysis and assessment shall be performed on the basis of available information and shall include at least identification of the hazards and determination of their characteristics, mapping of each hazards, the determination of the vulnerability of the territories, including the impact of climate change, assessment of the risk of disaster for each danger, taking into account the secondary effects. It's very important, of course. The assessment shall include a description, probability, and extent of the adverse effects on the life and health of population. Mapping of disaster risks, it's obligatory, of course. Risk reduction planning, it is carried out at national, regional, and municipal level. The planning covers the development and updating of national strategy for disaster risk reduction, national program for disaster risk reduction, you can see on the slide, municipal program for disaster risk reduction. You can see the different level, first, second, and third. I think that it's normal for every one of the country. To meet the objective of the national strategy for disaster risk reduction is being developed a national disaster risk reduction program with a duration of 5 years. It contains the strategic goals, the operational goals, activities for realization of the operational goals. Annual plans are adopted for the implementation of the national disaster risk reduction program. To achieve the objectives of the national program for disaster risk reduction, regional programs are developed, of course, for disaster risk reduction also. To meet the objective of the regional program for disaster risk reduction and in connection with the reduction of risks identified by municipal disaster protection plan, municipal programs for disaster risk reduction are developed also. For categorization, we can see that on the slide that urbanized area are divided into 5 groups. Depends on the populations. We have 5 biggest cities. It's up to 10, up to 30, up to 18,000, up to 50,000, up to 5,000. And you can see that this is 5 biggest actually cities in the 5th category. The identification of critical infrastructures and their sites, the risk assessment for them, and the protection measures. Measures for protection of critical infrastructures are a priority in determining the activities in the annual plans at national, regional, and municipal level. Disaster protection planning is carried out at municipal, district, and national level. Disaster protection plans shall be drawn up in parts for each of the hazards specific to the concerned area, with parts for earthquake, flood, and nuclear or radiation accidents are mandatory in all this planning. Monitoring, early warning are based on individuals, organizations, and institutions' meteorological and hydrological monitoring system. The National Emergency Call System, international exchange of information and data, all of them provide the information to the Bulgarian Ministry of Interior. Collective means of protection are engineering facilities whose main purpose is to hide the population in an air attack from combat and industrial toxic substances, radioactive substances, and biological agents. Metro and underground floors are also designed and built as protective facilities. Here on the slide you can see one old pictures for anti-nuclear bomb protection facility, which is already not so well explored. And now, as I mentioned, the most valuable are the metro, but it's of course in Sofia, in the capital, and also the all new facilities as blocks and etc. They are adapted somehow. But recently, unfortunately, that kind of prevention is not well prepared for the population. Maybe it's coming in future. The executive authorities, other state bodies, and the populations are trained for disaster protection. This education in compulsory, and here is the place of our Center of Excellence and other education and training facilities, where we put a lot of efforts in preparation of decision makers and other experts and expertise in all ministries, not only in the Ministry of Defense, of course, to prepare them how to react in case of disaster. Designated institutions and organizations. I will stop a little bit on these institutions. The Council of Ministers. The Council of Ministers forms and implements the state policy in the field of disaster protection, and also implements the general management of disaster protection, adopts a national strategy for disaster risk reduction and national plan for disaster protection, introduces the national system for early warning and notification, plans financial resources for disaster protection. To support the implementation of the activities, the Council of Ministers, a disaster risk reduction advisory body, is created. It includes representatives of the management of the ministries, departments, the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, universities, research institutions, Bulgarian Red Cross, legal entities, and etc. For the implementation of the National Disaster Protection Plan and order of the Prime Minister of the Republic of Bulgaria is established a national headquarters with designated chief and members. The activity of the national headquarters is served logistically, communication, and administratively by the General Directorate Fire Safety and Protection of the Population under Ministry of Interior. Disaster Risk Reduction Advisory Body. This Disaster Risk Reduction Council develops and proposes to the Council of Ministers the national strategy for disaster risk reduction, a national program for disaster risk reduction, and annual plans, national disaster protection plan, and develops guidelines related to disaster protection. On the regional level, the governor organizes and manages disaster protection in the district, organizes the training of the administration, coordinates and controls the preparation for disaster response, establishes an organization for early warning of disasters, establishes by order a regional headquarters for implementation of the regional disaster protection plans, coordinates and controls the development, may declare a state of emergency on the territory of the districts or part of it. Organization of the municipality level is the same. The district headquarters, analysis and assessment of disaster situation, propose to the regional governor for approval decision regarding the necessary volume and resource provision of rescue and emergency disaster recovery works for prevention, mitigation, and emergency disaster, and to support the affected population. Exercise control over the implementation of the tasks and the measures for controlling the disaster. Inform to the media, the population about the development of disasters, about the undertaken actions for its limitation and control, and for the necessary precautionary measures and actions. Report to the regional governor on the course of the conducted protective measure. To support the implementation of the activities, the Regional Council for Disaster Risk Reduction is established. Members are the mayors of municipality or their authorized representatives, one representative of the municipal council from each municipality on the territory of district, the director of the regional directorate, fire safety and protection of the population, the director of the regional directorate of the Ministry of Interior, the commander of the military formation on the territory of the district, the director of territorial directorate of the state agency national security, and other relevant to disaster risk reduction entities. Now I would like to stop for the unified rescue system. This is a single emergency number by decision of the European Council since 1991. Started the construction of the single European emergency number 112. The center in Sofia was set up in July 2007. On the slide, you can see the coordination mechanisms and the focal points of this system in time of disasters. First response here is in more details how the information is processed after call to 112. Specific information is obtained and after the signal is sent to the relevant element from the unified rescue system. Unified rescue system, the activities for the protection of population in case of disaster, ranging from warning to implementation of urgent measures for reduction to performance of urgent emergency restoration work and other operations performed by the unified rescue system. The main components of the system are General Directorate, Fire Safety and Protection of the Population, Ministry of Interior, the regional directorates of the Ministry of Interior, Bulgarian Red Cross, they are just, you can see on the slide, emergency medical care centers. The main components of the system ensure continuous readiness to receive messages in the event of disasters, their assessment, and immediate actions. The armed forces provide assistance in carrying out rescue and emergency recovery work with the permission of the Minister of Defense on the basis of a request from the relevant state body. In case of disasters, the components of the unified rescue system organize and implement the activities according to the disaster protection plans. The preparation of the components of the unified rescue system is carried out by conducting exercises. The purpose of the training is, of course, to establish the condition of the communication and information system and the readiness of the teams for disaster response. The exercises are planned and conducted to improve the interaction and coordination of the components of the unified rescue system and the executive authorities for disaster response. The coordination of the constituent parts of the unified rescue system is carried out through the operational centers of the General Directorate Fire Safety and Protection of the Population, Ministry of Interior, in their operational center, which receive and evaluate information on disasters from different parts, inform the competent components of the unified rescue system, and coordinate further activities on the basis of standard operational procedure, carried out early warning and notification of the executive body, the components of the unified rescue system, and the population in case of disaster. Coordination, the interaction and coordination between the parts of the unified rescue system involved in the implementation of the activity in case of danger or disaster shall be carried out by the operation manager. He should have the necessary expertise and experience depending on the nature of the disaster. In that case, here now we have a fireman, but could be a policeman, or in the case of pandemics, for example, is doctors and regarding the medical system. Every individual has the right to information about the measures for ensuring the protection, training on the ways of behavior and action in case of disasters, means of protection, urgent and restorative assistance, compensation for actually caused damages during or on the occasion of the normatively established once disaster protection actions. Obligation of the individuals, follow the restrictions in connection with declared state of emergency, help and any other individuals whose life or health is at risk as a result of a disaster, provide assistance in accordance with the capabilities at the request, provide the rescue team, take measures, and etc. Legal entities, owners, and users operating in sites hiding a risk of explosion of significant harmful effects on the environmental development and emergency plan for the site. They have responsibility when own or manage buildings and facilities for public services with a capacity of over 1,000 seats for visitors. And finally, the volunteers. Acting in case of disasters, they have the power under the law on the Ministry of Interior. They sign contracts, and volunteer teams are created by the mayor of the municipality also. And there is an obligation such kind of team to be established in every municipality with population less than 20,000 people. In the law and other administrative regulation, I explained in the details the other measures concerning recovery, resource, and support, depicting all the responsibility of the institutions of national, regional, and municipal level. I hope that I tried to speed up a little bit and to be exactly on time for 35 minutes. I think that we are exactly on time. I would like to thank you for your attention. And again, I'm ready and stay for your questions. Thank you, Carl.
So, Orlin, we've got a couple of questions, if you don't mind. The first one, I think, is probably the easiest for you to answer, which is what part of your military, so active, reserve forces, or any sort of military component, what role do they play in disaster planning, response, and recovery? Such as military support to civil authorities, I think.
Yes, actually the military, if I can back to far away in 2004, before this one, the obligation for everything, preparedness, recovery, and reaction was the obligation on the military. In 2004, after when we come in NATO and later in European Union, we changed the system, and now this the obligation, especially for reaction, is in the Ministry of Interior, as I mentioned in the presentation. But nevertheless, this is the third main goal for the military, how to support the civil authorities in case of disasters and crisis management, different than war or military activities. From that perspective, we still, all our resources are on the in support of civil authorities, and mostly actually when the military coming in the disaster for recovery, most of cases is when the civil authorities cannot manage on, alone with their efforts. But we don't wait to the end of the disaster to become so negative impacts on the population, and we have a very good relationship with the Ministry of Interior, and actually the military personnel is acting in all phases on disasters, especially in the preparedness. We have participated. We in all these activities, we participating in the reaction, and we participated in the renovation for the last period. From this perspective, the military are part of the system, but not the first responder, if we can say.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question is, you had also mentioned volunteers in your presentation.
Yes.
So what percentage of volunteers is present in your overall system as far as response, prevention, et cetera? Do the volunteers make up a large component of the response mechanism?
It depends, not too large. It depends. The volunteers are organized somehow of in special parts, mostly in the wildfires or floodings, or mass casualty as some kind of earthquake or something like this when it happened, and when we need especially in the first responders, we need some kind of help on the local level. The main, the recently events, we are using volunteers through the Red Cross, because they have a big list with volunteers, and they know how to react and who to call with the best experts, and who can be involved in the different disasters. And recently activities was the forest fires on Vitusha Mountain, for example. But it's maybe, and other systems is the same struggle with this problem. Sometimes too much volunteers leading to negative effect, how to manage the disaster, than more positive, because sometimes too much volunteers on the event, or is we need some additional help how to organize this big power with from the people, and sometimes we have that's why when we are calling the volunteers, we have a separate parts who to organize them, and what exactly we need in the case of different type of disaster which I mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Now, this is a slightly different question. So if you don't know it, we can certainly get an answer later on, and we'll post that in the LinkedIn group for some of the questions that we can't answer immediately. But in terms of emergency managers in Bulgaria, and so you had mentioned like the operations person that's involved in your process. When we're talking about like their training and their profession, what is sort of the path that they go through in terms of a career path? So a university degree, do you find that like at the municipal or regional level as an emergency manager, is it a formal position, or is it sort of occupied by, say, fire chiefs, police chiefs, and things like that?
We are talking for the volunteers here, the question.
Now it's a separate question from that, because now it's more about the profession itself. So if there's an emergency manager as a profession in Bulgaria,
Okay.
or is the emergency management responsibility, is that sort of with fire chiefs, police chiefs, the city administration? Is there an emergency manager type of function in Bulgaria as a career?
Well, as an emergency manager, no, I cannot declare that there is such of this profession, emergency manager. But it depends on every one of the decision maker on high level. For example, in police, in fire department, in military, in regional development, in the medical institutes, and etc. They are prepared to be a decision maker in case of disasters. And best of them, which are leading actually it depends on the disaster, who is could be lead the national staff, which we organize in case of disaster or crisis management. The case in pandemic situation, let's give the last example. The chief of the national staff was the chief of the military academy, who is the General Mutavchiyski. He was the chief of the national emergency staff. From that perspective, we don't have a profession like emergency manager, but every one of the decision makers, they are passing through stairs and leading it doesn't matter what kind of ministry or organization, which it could be on the municipality level or could be on the mayor of the city, for example. They are passing different types of education and training, how to react, how to organize the national or municipality staff, and how to coordinate with the other municipality, or how to coordinate with the national staff. From that perspective, I can say that, but it's a very interesting that I was starting to thinking about how it could be profession emergency manager. It's I don't know. It's very interesting for me if you could show me some examples in some countries that there are some kind of profession like emergency manager. it's interesting.
Yeah, I think we're all struggling with that sort of question sometimes about what is the role of emergency manager. When you're talking about the training like that, just to stay on that subject, when you're talking about the training, so if they're coming up through the government from municipal level and they're going to get this training, who provides that training to them in order so that they're
why it's Crisis Management and Disaster Response Center of Excellence. I'm joking,
okay.
but we are part of this one, of course, and not only we as a accredited NATO body, and we are more familiar with crisis management system, for example, for NATO crisis management system. And we are already developed expertise in different areas. For example, if you go on our site, you can see that we have a different courses and activities, which in different depth of knowledge from the beginning to the high level for strategic, for example, level. And institutions like us, facilities, education and training facilities as Center of Excellence, we are more on operational and strategic level. But in the same case, we have different institutions, especially academia, which are focused on that kind of training. For example, Military Academy, for example, Bulgarian Academy of Science. We have different centers which are organized. Red Cross organize also a lot of activities for education and training. Every one of the ministry organize different education and training using academia and universities, of course, and organizing different activities. The highest level of education and training, that is exercises, which could be on the municipality level, could be in the city level, could be regional level, could be, of course, on the national level. And most important on that, all these activities is to understand what is the relation between different institutions. That is the most important, how to use it and how to organize it. From that perspective, for education and training purposes, we can talk a lot, but I think that that is not the purpose of this lecture. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's change topics slightly. And again, if we need to send this question out and get an answer, we'll do that. But during the earthquake and tsunami in 2007 in the Black Sea, what are I'm not really familiar with this event, but so what are the lessons learned for Bulgarian national disaster warning and mitigation systems? So are you familiar with any sort of lessons learned from the warning and mitigation systems from that event?
Thanks God, I'm not familiar with tsunami in the Black Sea, but who knows, maybe someday could happen. Yes, but I will stop a little bit. I understand this question as what is the how the early warning system could help the population and to react in the right manner. That is well developed in Bulgaria. Actually, in the territory of the whole country, we have emergency that kind of information system in case of especially on floodings, especially on earthquakes. Unfortunately, we cannot predict earthquakes, but could predict floodings and forest fires and etc. And somehow to warn the population. That's why we are using that early warning system. The most important of this early warning system is to react, and it's focused in the Ministry of Interior, where is this phone number 112, and this early warning system is also deployed over there, and could be to react on the whole territory of the country. The last earthquake was a long time ago, and hope that will not happen soon. It was that was actually the lesson learned from this earthquake. It was far away in 1994 in the Kresna, and one of the worst case that we don't have the population don't have a lot of information about where and who was affected in this case and how to warn them where to go, how to warn, not to have a panic and massive disorder and etc. That was the worst case scenario, because the earthquake happened, a lot of victims, a lot of material losses and etc. And the population doesn't know what will happen. We'll have the second earthquake, third, and etc. What kind of that was the worst case scenario. Even I remember this one. I'm a little forward from thematic, but it's interesting. I've been in 2011, I think. I was outside of the border of Bulgaria, and my children was very small, and my wife was in panic, and he's calling me and say, "Hey, can you remember? Can you imagine that no one called me? I'm calling to everyone of the institution. I don't have any information." And I just ask her, "Hey, my dear, do you have in mind that every one of the population in Sofia now is calling to emergency system, and if they started to answer to your phones and to your questions, who will resolve the crisis? Please be calm, stay a little bit, wait for first news. They will appear very soon. Just wait for 10 minutes, find your appropriate place to be on the safety, you and the children." And after 15 minutes, he called me again. "Hey, I understand everything." They call us through the TV, through the radio, through the early warning system, and we understand everything. Yeah, I'm really sorry, my reaction was stupid. Of course, that is the most important thing, to learn the population how to react the first 10, 15 minutes, which are most important in that case, and how to help to others to react, especially in disabled people, as some small children or old person, how to evacuate and to be on the safe place. That is exactly our goal and our tasks, how to learn the population and how to learn the decision makers to react in case of a disaster or crisis. Thank you.
Okay, so let's say with that kind of larger scale question there, because here's a follow-up question for you, which is, for example, in a larger disaster like that, are there any cross-border aid agreements with your neighboring countries?
The short answer is yes, of course. Of course that we have, and most important here in that kind of cross-borders events, because with our colleagues, our neighbor countries like Greece, like North Macedonia, Romania, Serbia, of course, we have plans how to cooperate between different ministries. Of course, including European Union legislation and including Euro-Atlantic Disaster Response Coordination Center in NATO. Everything is going on the right place. But to learn again and to know how, when, and with whom, and what moment is very important. The decision makers to know that kind of procedures. That's why is again the education and training is the most important. Actually, in September we will conduct together with NATO Euro-Atlantic Disaster Response Coordination Center the next exercise, which is exactly on that kind of cross-border events, and it will be in North Macedonia in September, and that is again how to react, how to use the outside and actually our neighbors units, and they to come and to help on the system and etc. The exercises, especially the live exercises, are very useful and not only attractive but very useful to coordinate, to exchange different knowledge and different techniques between the teams. The tabletop exercises on the high level, on the operational strategic level, which here on the region we conducted a lot every year almost. Unfortunately, the pandemic stopped, for example, the exercise CCM 20, but we will conduct it maybe in the following years. Every 2 years, we conducted some kind of exercise like a Balkan bridges for the military purpose and to organize military personnel and units. And of course, with our colleagues from Ministry of Interior, we conducted common exercises where we involve other ministries and agencies and governmental and non-governmental organizations, not only from the territory of, for example, Bulgaria, but also from outside. And we conducted a different scale international exercises for that kind of purpose.
Okay, great. Thank you. And just one last question, because we're starting to run out of time here. We've got a lot of questions, just so everybody knows. And what we're going to do is we'll take these questions. Colonel will send them to you, and we'll draft an answer, and we'll put them into the LinkedIn group so people can reference those later on. But the last question that we'll answer for today is, are there any active participants or participation from religious organizations in the planning process, or maybe in exercises and things like that in Bulgaria? And to what extent are they involved?
This question, I didn't expect to finish with this question because I will not be so, so familiar with exactly the correct answer. But again, the short answer is yes, because everyone community has his own inside system and how to work and how to help each other. Of course, that all these communities, maybe not all, but main common communities, are religious and different, if you can say even gender, some kind of communities on different level, they are organized inside. But the most important here is that the leaders of this community, they are in very tough contact with the governmental organizations, like us, Ministry of Interior in that part, to react in the disaster case, and in the different institutions which are related in different religious other communities. From that perspective, the question is, the short answer is yes. But also, maybe we need additional time and slot to answer or exact how they are organized, and because every one of the community has a different their own rules. For example, there we have one of the community. They are so that they believe that this disaster is from God. And if something should happen, it should be happened now. And it's very difficult to fight with them, even to evacuate from the house or from the area of the disaster. And this sometimes this put a lot of efforts to convince them that it's not from the God, for example, and we should react because this model is looking from the young people and from some old people. For example, we have other community which say, I will not move from this area because I cannot live without animals, my animals, or I'm here to support them, I'm here to protect them, and etc., etc., etc. There are a lot of examples which are very interesting, and again, the decision makers and the experts should be prepared in case of that kind of disasters. And some of the courses, even they are included as a thematics, how to deal with that kind of groups which are not so eager to help on their reaction teams and etc. Thank you for this question, actually, but next time I will include it in my presentation also. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you very much for the presentation today. And if you did have a question and we didn't have a chance to get to it, just be aware of the fact that, we've got your questions. Victoria's here with us today from CBI. She's going to be taking those questions and we're going to put them into our LinkedIn group once we get some answers. We're also going back with our previous webinars and capturing some questions that we didn't get answered yet, and we'll be uploading those as well. So you can watch over the coming weeks as we start adding more into that, more information into that group itself. So if you're not following that, please go ahead and do that. And that's where we will put your questions. We haven't forgotten about them. Don't worry. We're just kind of running long on our time today, and we will certainly get those answers for you. So if you are interested in finding out more about the Internet Institute for Security Governance, there's information here. You can go to instituteforsecuritygovernance.org, and you can also reach out to Mr. Scott Moreland, who is the Emergency Management and Resilience Functional Lead, or Ashley Woodson, if you're interested in finding out more information about what they do in terms of institutional capacity building and the role of, for example, civil military emergency preparedness. Other than that, that concludes our webinar for today. Colonel Nikolov, just want to thank you once again for your time and your presentation. It was great to see you again, and I'm sure we'll see each other soon as well. Everybody else, thank you very much for your time. Harold, did you have any closing remarks?
Kyle, thank you very much. Just before the closing remarks, please excuse me for this type also, because sorry, here on the screen should be anti-Romanian flag. From 1st of July, Romania also joined the Center of Excellence. I'm really sorry for and would like to apologize for this mistake on the presentation to our Romanian colleagues. Thank you very much again for these opportunities, and now I can give the floor for the final remarks.
No, the only remark, I like to thank Orlin Nikolov for his presentation. I had a very unstable connection today, but I got most of it and I can watch afterwards. Thank you and see you again. Thank you all.
See you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll see you in the next webinar.